Hi, founder of Charity Excellence. We built and launched our first charity AI service towards the end of 2022. We've launched a number of other services since then, and we've produced a whole variety of toolkits, insight briefings, guides, and this webinar is one of a series of charity AI webinars that we've produced. It's an introduction to what it is, what it means for you, and what you need to do. In the YouTube link, you will take us through to the website. The website contains all of the resources and guides and everything that are covered in this. And you can also download the interactive infographic from there. It will give you everything you need. Right. AI is the ability of a computer to learn and think. And what it enables it to do is to perform tasks typically done by a human. So if you speak to one of our AI bunnies, it will be able to understand what you're saying. It will give you the answers. If you mention the vets, it will get hissy. If you change the subject to carrots, it'll be all over you like a rash. It's very human-like. It's not sentient. AI is about algorithms. And there are different types. The bunnies, for example, use 2 different types of AI. So the challenge for the charity sector. If you just jump on the bandwagon and adopt AI, it may go horribly wrong because there are very real risks. If you don't, you will miss out on game-changing technology, and it's going to change the world fundamentally and very quickly, and you will be using it whether you want to or whether you know you are or not. So what we need to do is to help you to understand it, to manage the risks, and understand how you can exploit it and really make a difference in your charity. Our aim is to make AI accessible to all non-profits. Our stepping stone strategy is about acting as a catalyst for the sector and supporting charities to moving to AI quickly, safely, and effectively. But we always have a particular focus on the smaller charities and the marginalised groups who too often get left behind. So a big part of what we do is about making sure it's not going to happen this time. So the near-term risk, privacy. AI systems can scrape your website. You may or may not be bothered about that. And if you're inputting into a generative AI system, they're very data hungry. They make opting out quite difficult. Anything you put in there, you are sharing with its whole large language model. Legal issues. Who owns it? So if AI scrapes my website crypto fundraising guide, I own the copyright of that. If it then gives it to NCVO because they've asked it, and it writes something different, and it's changed it a bit, and then NCVO rewrite it, and they publish it on their website, who owns the IP at that point? Me? ChatGPT? Or NCVO? Don't know. I don't care. As long as my information is getting to people who are using it, I don't care whether it's my website or someone else's, but this is clearly a big deal for a lot of organizations, particularly creatives. Disinformation, it's a major issue. It is going to get much worse. One of the things about the racist, the misogynist, all those people who are out there, is often it's a rant. You can see that this is nonsensical stuff. But in actual fact, they can pop this into ChatGPT and say, I would like you to take my deeply offensive views and turn them into something that will be really quite compelling and engaging for teenage boys. And it will do that. It does have guardrails. You can jailbreak them. There is no question that the levels of disinformation will become significantly more difficult to manage. That's an issue societally. It is also an issue for charities. We rely on the public's trust. If the public becomes increasingly unwilling to trust communications and online material, then it makes it that much more difficult for us to get our message over. So it will impact us on 2 levels. And scams, exactly the same thing. they will become increasingly effective. So if you're dancing with your mum on TikTok, I can scrape your voice. I can then feed it into an AI system. I can tell it to replicate your voice. I can reverse image your mum. I can find out what her number is. I can get the AI to call her up, say you're in real trouble, and she needs to send you money immediately. Far-fetched, it's happened already. So beneficiaries within the sector who tend to be more vulnerable than the general populace are going to be far more at risk of this kind of attack, as will charities themselves. And things like scam charity websites will again undermine the public's trust in what they read about us and from us. And discrimination. It's already here. We know, for example, that facial recognition systems often discriminate against Black people and people from ethnic minorities. It's about how we select that data. To be honest, the data is reflecting our society back at us. The AI isn't evil. If we don't like it, we should change as a society. It also matters the way it's trained. And an example of this sort of thing is a major company asked the AI to pick the people who were going to be really successful, and it stopped calling any women forward for interview. Because to be really successful in that company, you had to be a young white bloke with an MBA and you were straight through to get a seat on the board. The issue was the culture in the company. In a sense, that's easy to spot. But what about if it's intermittent changes or it's minor things like downing your credit score or increasing your insurance? How is that kind of thing going to be detected? Again, this is going to be a major problem. Less obvious risks, obsolescence. Again, I hear from charities, we're absolutely brilliant. We're face-to-face, we're hands-on people. Nobody does it as well as us. AI couldn't possibly replace us. Wrong question. You've got to be very careful. AI will fundamentally change everything that we do. If you don't move with it, you will be increasingly less effective. So we need to accept that. Loss of human agency. The classic one that most people would quote is Amazon giving you 3.5 minutes for a toilet break kind of thing, where people do what the machines tell them to. If you are put in that kind of situation, such as HR digital monitoring and things, it robs you of your ability to make decisions. That can be extremely damaging for people's well-being and their mental health. And more than that, you will not simply not get the best out of the AI by using it in that way, but it can be very damaging to people. And dumbing down creativity. There are concerns about it taking bid writers' jobs and all that. I don't see that at all. It does not have flair, insight, moral judgment. AI doesn't do that kind of stuff. It can use what's out there to create new stuff. If you take the average of the average, you get very average. There is a risk of turning creativity and journalism into pastiche. Moral outsourcing, what we've seen on social media. So, for example, wasn't me that did it, it was the computer gov. What moral outsourcing says is, if you build an AI system, it is your responsibility to make sure that that system functions in the way it's supposed to and that it's safe and it does not discriminate against people. The problem is, you can see things like facial recognition being rolled out at an incredible rate of knots by the government. I'm not reading anything that tells me that they're perfectly happy that that stuff all works the way it should be. They want the shiny new toy. They want it now. The major tech companies do not want to spend lots of time and effort and money making sure that things are working exactly as they should, because it eats into profit margins. So what we want to do is we want to build the damn stuff. We want to get out there as soon as possible. And when it goes wrong, because it is going to go wrong, then actually that's really terrible. Oh, we're really sorry about that. You know, it's AI did it. No. And we must rely on regulators and governments to make sure that people are not giving that out. And critical thinking, we all use it. What type of nappies am I going to buy in the supermarket today? All the way through operations, flying airplanes, to someone with their finger on the nuclear button. If you say to Alexa, give me the weather forecast for this afternoon, and you decide to take an umbrella, you've made a decision. If you say to Alexa, should I take an umbrella this afternoon, you have given the decision to Alexa. Now, that's not a big deal. But if we give away our critical thinking, we will lose that ability. And when it's things like fingers on nuclear buttons and people making life and death decisions, then we won't be able to make them as well as possible. What I've given you on this page is the kind of thing that's coming out of places like MIT robotics and Cambridge futurists and all that. This is all a bit fluffy. You're not likely to see much of this kind of stuff in the sector correspondence and talking about this, but actually these are the big long-term things that potentially may really matter. And the Paperclip Maximizer. It was a thought experiment from about 20 years ago, I think, where it was told to maximize the paper clips. And then it realized that if it filled the entire world full of paper clips, that the humans would not actually want them all and would stop it. And therefore it gets rid of all the humans because they're getting in the way of it doing its job properly. This is artificial general intelligence. It's not here yet. I teach the AI bunnies and I show them how to do things and they get better and better. If they could teach themselves, they could do in milliseconds what takes me hours. If they do that and they get smarter and they learn smarter and they get faster and faster and faster and faster, they eventually reach singularity where basically they can think for themselves. Artificial general intelligence, and they're smarter than we are at that point. If we've handed control over to them, they are not evil, but they're not human either. So if we said to Skynet, what I want you to do is to take immediate robust action to prevent climate change. What if it decides we're the problem? What's it going to do about that? It's called goal divergence. This is a real issue. It must be dealt with. It is not an urgent issue. We should not be derailed by the tech people. We should be thinking about the other stuff I spoke about because that's the stuff that's going to hit us in the near future. And we have the AI bunnies. This is an example of AI imagery. No, I did not put one of my rabbits on the back of a motorbike with sunglasses and a shotgun. But imagery is another way of using it. So what is generative AI? What we would call ChatGPT. There's loads of AI. It's been around since the 1950s. Neural networks, robotics, machine learning. The bunnies, for example, run on machine learning and ChatGPT. Generative AI creates things. That's the difference. ChatGPT launched in November 22. It became the fastest growing app in internet history. That's why it sometimes gets a bit flaky when you're using it. It basically runs out of steam because there are so many people on it. It is one of a whole number of new apps that are emerging. So there are three things you really need to get. The first is you'll hear talk about large language models. Basically, these things run on huge data sets. Think about the scale of the internet size of data sets. They've got access to everything in there. Fundraising strategies, letters, everything you can think of. But remember, it's global and it's not charity. It's just a massive data set. And basically, it's autocomplete on your phone, but on steroids. So when you ask it, it goes, well, what would the next bit of that sentence be? Oh, it would be that. And then when it's done that, it goes, well, what would the next bit be? Well, it'd be that. And what would the next bit be? Well, it would be that. That's fundamentally what it's doing. So it's not hallucinating. It's just trying to complete things for you. To give you an example of how powerful that is, the Charity Commission objected to a registration application by a bunch of professors, and what they were effectively saying was that the whole thing around Black Lives Matter and queer theory, etc., you have not proved a causal link to the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights underpinning articles and supporting conventions. If you can't prove a causal link, you can't be registered as a charity. So what I did is I went into ChatGPT and said, would you do that for me, please? Took about 30 seconds. But note, everything it did was from its large language model data set. I didn't ask it to do anything it didn't know. I asked it for everything in its data set because it knows nothing about your charity, your plans, who you are, what you do. So if you want to use it and it needs that kind of thing to do that, you have to give it to it or it can't. So those are the three things. Massive data set with loads of everything out it. It's basically an autocomplete and it knows nothing about you. You've got that, you're on the road. So what are the challenges? ONS say 50% have tried AI. The rest are going to happen very soon. And whether you want to or even know you are, you will be using AI. It will be built into everything. So we need to be able to manage those risks. We need to get the best out of it. They're black boxes. Even those building it don't know what it does. They know what's in the data set. We don't. They do. You can see what comes out. The bit in the middle is so complex. They have absolutely no idea what it's doing in there. I'll give you an example of that. I was training the bunnies. They had a bit of a hissy fit because this woman was mentioned. I had no idea who she was, so I Googled it, and it turned out it was the actress who boiled the bunny rabbits in Fatal Attraction. So I phoned the developer team at Biomni up and said, they can't know that. And they went, yeah, it does that sometimes. We don't really know what it's doing. Our world is rapidly and fundamentally changing in ways that we do not understand. It's a bit like the internet and the whole outlook and the microprocessors, but much, much more fundamental and faster than that. It is far ahead of ethics, the law, regulation. It's going to take years to settle this stuff. You have to deal with that now. So you need to think, what might I need to do with my policies and procedures in my charity? Things to be aware of. Do not be vague. It's a computer. It's very, very precise. So if you have a rug rat in your house, if you whisper sweets, a few seconds later, there'll be something wrapped around your leg waiting for the handout of sweets. Your small person knows that what you meant is, would you like some sweets? Not, what kind of sweets do they have in China? Or can you give me a recipe for sweets? Or can you give me the chemical ingredients for sweets? It's a human. A computer is not. You have to be very specific. So don't use vague or ambiguous. Young. Everybody looks young to me nowadays. So what I might say, for example, could be primary school children in a madrasa in Pakistan. I've given you an age range. I've given you an idea of culture and location. Or it could be British university students, different educational level, different age. You would not speak to those two groups in the same way. So you can't go into ChatGPT and say something like, write me a funding bid. It will. It'll probably be for a company in America, and it probably won't be a very good one, but it'll do it for you. So you need to be precise. Hallucination. It's trying to give you what you want. So if you go into the bid writing bunny and you don't answer its questions, like, what does your charity do? It will try and do it for you. So when I enter nonsense into the bid writing bunny, it came back with on one occasion, it came back, it was a women's charity working in mental health. That's hallucination, completely made up. But I didn't tell it, and it knew it needed that information to put in a funding bid, so it did the best it could for me. It was my fault, not its. It's not current yet. So it's not slap bang up to date. So you can't assume that the information is correct. And it makes mistakes, but it does it very convincingly. It can sound really good. So what do? Be precise about it. And what I'll often do is start with something fairly simple, but very precise, and see if I get the right answer. And often I don't. So what I do is I just do it slightly differently. I do it slightly differently. So I might put in British university students, and no, that wasn't quite right. Okay. Women who are British university students. Yeah, actually, that was a lot better. Um, British university students that are women that are something else. No, that didn't work. It didn't make any difference. Okay, I don't need that. I'll just stick with this. Then I will begin to build it out. So I often need 2 or 3 attempts to get it right. That's fine. Beyond that, treat absolutely everything as a draft. If the intern wrote your board report, you would check it in detail before you put it through to the board. If ChatGPT does it and you don't check it, then you're gonna get it wrong. So I don't think any of this stuff is scary. It's about understanding it, and it's just check it. So how can we as a sector adopt AI safely and effectively? We have created a whole series of toolkits. It is 1st of February, and yesterday the government published its AI guidance for generative AI for public servants. We did ours 8 months ago. Based on our own work when we set our first systems up, ethics and governance framework. It's very simple, and it's short. And it will include things like human agency and all that the big organizations might want, but it includes all the other bits as well. What you do, you simply go through, you take from it what you need, and you implement that. And that's fine. And you can either have your own AI governance framework, or you can just take bits out of it. All of the policies that you can download from Charity Excellence have been, where necessary, amended to reflect AI and what you need to do. There's a risk toolkit and register. The risks I went through are explored in more detail, and there's more of them. You can either take stuff out there that you want, or you can just take the whole risk register and modify it. If you're commissioning or making grants or building AI, we have system design principles. All of this stuff, by the way, is built on the work of others. I have done a lot of research with people like Google and various others. So what we've done is we've taken what's good for what we found that's really good and that it works for us, and then we've built it into these tools. Things are evolving, so I keep changing the tools, but they are the best that we can do right now. We also produce things like insight briefings, training webinars like this, and I have my roadkill toolkit. So if you want to know whether your charity is at risk, answer the questions the toolkit will tell you. The stepping stone strategy is all of the above and lots more. I put loads of resources produced by other organizations for commercial sector, etc. They're all in the AI services of the website. But specifically, what can't it do? Funding bids. If you have a funding bid, you have to put loads of specific information in, none of which ChatGPT knows. If you don't put it in, it will hallucinate. So if you log into Charity Excellence and you use the bid writing bunny, it will ask you 17 questions. You answer the questions, you will get a good funding bid back. Professional fundraisers are using it already, but they know what to put in. So if you know what you're doing, it's fine. If you don't know what you're doing, register and log in, and the bunny will do it for you. Policies, personally, I have found it doesn't do terribly well. I've tried pointing it at the various bits of the Charity Commission for safeguarding, etc. It will write policies. They're a bit apple pie, motherhood and apple pie. I just don't find them terribly useful. So what I've done is we've written about 40 policies. You can download all of them. But I just don't find it very good for that kind of thing. It's not yet up to date. So people say, well, I can use it to search for grants. The answer is, yeah, you can. I mean, it works, but it is not up to date, and it's not curated. Funding databases, much better, because they're up to date, they're curated by humans. Things like PESTLE. What are the latest things happening in the outside world that may impact on your strategy? It's not up to date. Prices. Lists of organization. Actually, you can budget. I will often ask it for prices. They're out of date. But say I was comparing social media management systems, the one that was really expensive last year is probably the one that's still really expensive this year. So in actual fact, it's useful, but except that what you're getting is out of date. Privacy issues. The default is data sharing. They want your data. It's really important to build their LLMs. They make it quite difficult. If your staff are doing beneficiary reports, disciplinaries, appraisals, financial data, you are sharing that with the entire data set. I wouldn't do that. You can opt out. Personally, I never put any sensitive or personal information into one of these things. And fundraising research. The guardrails are there. They're there to stop things like misogyny and racism, but also data protection. They're getting better than they were, but they won't do things like share names. So I've said to it, for example, I would like you to go and find all the companies and bucks that make donations to charities. And it goes, yeah, I'm perfectly happy to do that. And I would say, and could you give me the name of the chief exec and his or her email address? And it goes, no, I'm not going to do that. If I ask it for the public email address or the public telephone number, it's perfectly happy with that. So I can still generate my lists, but I'm not going to get it. Other ones I've done, can you give me celebrities who support mental health? There's a list of about 40 on the system. What you can do is say to it, how would I find the names and contact details of people like chief executives and board members of a company? And it's more than happy to tell you how to do it. Won't do it for you, but it's more than happy to tell you how to do it. So there are lots of ways you can get around these, but just to be aware, these are the kind of things where it doesn't work terribly well. But it is our biggest opportunity in decades. Our economic and resilience data is showing we really don't expect things to get better anytime soon. This is possibly one of the biggest opportunities that happened in years. It does two things: removing digital debt, freeing you up to do more of the great work that you do. So, for example, I have a mental health report written by the clinicians. Could you summarize this, please, and turn it into a board paper that's authoritative and in simple, plain English of no more than 500 words? Thank you very much. Could you give me that? 200 words in language that people on the street would understand for my webpage. Could you give me that for a newsletter? Actually, we're an autism charity. Could you write it for people? It will be accessible for people who are autistic. Yeah, let's promote this. Could you give me half a dozen tweets? Well, wait a minute. We work with young people. Tell you what, could you tell me what social media platforms young people are on? Could you tell me what days and times best to post on the social media platforms? Could you then write me posts for my Insta? Does that mean you're out of a job? No. AI does not have moral judgment. It hasn't got insight. It struggles with things like context. So you might look at what it's written and you may look at that particular one and say, yeah, that just isn't going to work with the young people we work with because you know them in a way that AI doesn't. The flair, that kind of thing, it doesn't have, but it can crunch through all of that stuff, augmenting your capabilities. Am I capable of understanding queer theory and mapping it to the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, underpinning articles and supporting conventions? Not anytime quick. I'm not a lawyer, but actually ChatGPT can do that for me. So it's going to take the workload away. It's going to let us achieve more. And particularly for small charities, that's really, really powerful. And no, it's not going to take your job. How can it help charities? The classic is the blank page problem. Chief exec says, we're going to have a summer fair. You're running it. Off you go. And you go, oh my God, I've no idea how to do this. I've never done it before. You go into ChatGPT and you say, how do you organize a summer fair? Literally, that's it. And then you can come back, things like, give me ideas for stalls, etc., etc., etc. So it's great for that kind of thing. Creating content, plans, drafts. If it's all out there on the internet, it can do that stuff. Give me a poster. Give me a risk plan. What I tend to do is start simple, like give me an outline plan for my summer fair, give me ideas for stalls, give me the key risks, give me avoidance and mitigation action for the key risks, give me some ideas around posters, blah, 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 step by step by step. All those follow-on queries are a really good way to build something out. Analysis, review and compare. The first AI training session was with Money for You, who are a BAME group. And the lady said, you know, I don't know anything. I've got to do social media management systems. How do I choose a good one? And quite literally, please give me a list of all the social media management systems that would be suitable for a small UK charity, including the free ones. Right, done. Give me the pros and cons of each, please. Thank you. Can you put prices against them? Thank you. Which one would you recommend? Thank you. That quick. And compares. And you can get it review your own stuff. Here is a speech I've written. Please rewrite it a bit better. Please rewrite it a bit shorter. Please rewrite it, but prioritizing these more. Please rewrite it to make it suitable for an audience of young people who have autism. And you just just go and do it. And there's a regenerate button. If you don't like the first one it gives you, you just keep hitting regenerate and just keep redoing it for you. And to summarize, as I said, your mental health report, turn it into a board report, turn it into content for the website, turn it into tweets. It's really good at that. And having fun and spurring your creativity. For example, I think everything's probably a bit apocryphal now. Someone had to brief AI to the board with this kind of stuff, and he said to it, would you write my presentation in the style of Yoda, please? And it did, and apparently it was a great success. You can have loads of fun with AI. What do our services do? Well, primarily they're the bunnies. You land on the website, the first thing you will do is meet Mini-Me the bunny, and they will help you. There's another one when you log in called Mini Ding. They support system navigation. So if you're looking for the fundraising Dalek, period products, they will tell you where to go and get it. They can't run queries for you on the main system directories yet, but they will tell you exactly where to go and find things. So funding resources help. The website bunny also helps individuals and families, help personal funding, welfare support. If you say to it, I'm queer and I'm being abused, it will send you to Gallup. If you say I'm gay and I'm about to lose my flat, it will send you to Stonewall's housing support. So they will help people find the support that they need, including things that are potentially really quite difficult to talk about, like incontinence or revenge porn. They will actually be able to direct you. Ask Me Anything. They have 40 knowledge banks. They can answer about 20,000 questions related to non-profits with 90% accuracy, including stuff like tax. You just ask them, they'll go and get the answer for you. As long as you've registered and then log in, the in-system bunny can also write grant funding bids for you. It also has ChatGPT services, and it can find policies and things that will bring them to you and download them. We also have things like our oven-ready library, where you can just go to the library and it's got PR, it's got comms, it's got governance, finance, and you just pick the one you want. It's got options for amending it. You amend it, you simply drop it into ChatGPT, you press the go button, and off it will go and it will work for you. And then ultimately you can move forward into how you build your own bespoke queries. We've got a little guide for that. And you just come in where it's suitable for you. Essentially what we're doing is trying to get you up to speed. And then you turn around and say, thank you very much, actually, I know more about this than you do, and you're off on your own. And that's fantastic, because that's a result as far as we're concerned. We've also got charity facts and popular questions. I'm Scottish. If someone asks a bunny rabbit how he or she can find a charity to make a donation to, we absolutely do not want those kind of questions going unanswered. And we get a lot of questions, are you a real bunny? And the answer is yes, they are in fact real bunnies. This is Mini-Me. The other one is Mini Ding. They're currently both upstairs having lunch. And the reason I have bunny rabbits, and everyone does ask, is we have lots and lots of vulnerable people using the system. I needed 2 avatars. I needed things that were completely non-threatening, and the 2 of them were fast asleep on the floor. So we now have AI bunny rabbits. Thank you very much for listening to me. We have a number of other webinars. Go to the website, Charity AI Services page. It will give you absolutely everything I've talked in here. You can also download the infographic. And if you log in and meet Mini Ding, who is wearing a cool pair of sunglasses, he will write you funding bids, get you policies, and all sorts of other things. Thank you very much.